Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 23, Maharaj Prithu's going back home. Text number 7 onwards. Titikshuryat Vagdanta Urdhureta Jitanilaha Ariradha Yeshu Krishnam Acharatap Uttamam. Maharaj Prithu underwent all these severe austerities in order to control his words and his senses, to refrain from discharging his semen and to control the life air within his body. All this he did for the satisfaction of Krishna. He had no other purpose. In Kali Yuga, the following is recommended: Harer Nam, Harer Nam, Harer Nam Eva Keval. In order to be recognized by Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one should chant the holy name of the Lord continuously, 24 hours a day. Unfortunate persons who cannot accept this formula prefer to execute some type of pseudo-meditation without accepting the other processes of austerity. The fact is, however, that one must accept either of the severe method of austerity described above to become purified, or to take to the process of devotional service recommended for pleasing the Supreme Lord Krishna. The person who is Krishna conscious is most intelligent, because in Kali Yuga it is not at all possible to undergo such severe austerities. We need only follow great personalities like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In his Shikshashtaka, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wrote, Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. All glory is to the holy names of Lord Krishna, which from the very beginning purify the heart and immediately liberate one. Bhav Mahadavagani Nirvapanam. If the real purpose of all yoga is to please Krishna, then this simple Bhakti Yoga system recommended for this age is sufficient. It is necessary, however, to engage constantly in the service of the Lord. Although Prithu Maharaj executed his austerities long before the appearance of Lord Krishna on this planet, his purpose was still to please Krishna. So Prithu Maharaj performed his austerities like we studied yesterday. He was eating the roots and the fruits and the stems of the trees, and sometimes only the dried leaves, drinking water, and sometimes only living on air. He was doing his austerities, severe austerities, to control the words and his senses, to refrain from discharging his semen, and to control the life air within his body. So our idea was, as Maitreya Muni is writing in the shloka and saying in the shloka, and Prabhupada is explaining, all this he did for the satisfaction of Krishna. Because ultimately, Prithu Maharaj, that was a time of, must be the time of either Satya Yuga or Treta Yuga, when he appeared, when he was doing all this, and he was doing all this and finally controlling his mind or meditating on Krishna, concentrating his mind on Krishna. But for this, Kali Yuga, Prabhupada explains, chanting of the holy names is the only thing that we can do, nothing else. No other austerity, no other tapasya we can perform. There are many fools who claim that worship of Krishna began only about 5,000 years ago, after the appearance of Lord Krishna in India. But this is not a fact. Prithu Maharaj worshipped Krishna millions of years ago, for Prithu happened to be a descendant of the family of Maharaj Dhruva, who reigned for 36,000 years during the Satyuga age. Unless his total lifespan was 100,000 years, how could Dhruva Maharaj reign over the world for 36,000 years? The point is that Krishna worship existed at the beginning of creation and has continued to exist throughout Satyuga, Treta Yuga, and Dwapar Yuga, and now it is continuing in Kali Yuga. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna appears not only in this millennium of Brahma's life, but in every millennium. Therefore, worship of Krishna is conducted in all millenniums. It is not that Krishna worship began only when Krishna appeared on this planet 5,000 years ago. This is a foolish conclusion that is not substantiated by Vedic literatures. So here in the shloka itself, it says, Are Radhayeshu Krishnam. It clearly says about Krishnam, about Lord Krishna. It doesn't say Vishnu or anybody else. So this is what Prabhupada is mentioning, that Maharaj Prithu did all this to please, to satisfy Lord Krishna himself. So Krishna is, see, from Vedic scriptures we understand, Krishna appears once in a day of Brahma. Okay, he appeared about 5,000 years ago, 7th Manu, 28th Dwapar Yuga, towards the end of 28th Dwapar Yuga. But Krishna is always present. He just manifested his pastimes this time. But through the scriptures, his presence is confirmed. It's been authoritatively confirmed that he is there. And his worship, of course, Prithu Maharaj worshipped by meditating upon him. We worship him by chanting his holy names. And in Dwapar Yuga, the worship was by opening big temples and installing the deities. So this worship is not, like Prabhupada explains, it's not 5,000 years ago we started worshipping Krishna. No. He's been worshipped since times immemorial. It's just in this Kali Yuga, after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, he established the worship properly by chanting of the holy names. That's all. The worship has been going on. Also of significance in this verse are the words, Ari Radhayeshu Krishnam Acharat Tapta Uttamam. Maharaj Prithu underwent severe types of austerities for the express purpose of worshipping Krishna. Krishna is so kind, especially in this age, that he appears in the transcendental vibration of his holy name, as is said in the Narad Pancharatra, Aradito yadi haresh tapsa tata hakim. If Krishna is worshipped, if he is the goal of advancement, there is no need for one to execute severe types of tapasya, because one has already reached his destination. And if after executing all types of tapasya one cannot reach Krishna, all his tapasya has no value. For without Krishna, all austerity is simply wasted labor. Shram eva hi kevalam. We should therefore not be discouraged just because we cannot go to the forest and practice severe austerities. Our life is so short that we must strictly adhere to the principles laid down by the Vaishnava Acharyas and peacefully execute Krishna consciousness. There is no need to become despondent. Narottam Das Thakur recommends, Anande Vala Hari Bhajya Vrindavan Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majayaman. For a transcendental, blissful life, chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Come worship the holy place of Vrindavan and always engage in the service of the Lord, of the spiritual master and of the Vaishnavas. This Krishna consciousness movement is therefore very safe and easy. We have only to execute the order of the Lord and fully surrender unto him. We have only to execute the order of the spiritual master, preach Krishna consciousness, and follow in the path of the Vaishnavas. The spiritual master represents both Lord Krishna and the Vaishnavas. Therefore, by following the instructions of the spiritual master and by chanting Hare Krishna, everything will be all right. So, tapasya, Maharaj Prithu underwent severe types of tapasya. He could do that at that time. In Kali Yuga, we cannot do any of this tapasya. In fact, Today for you all is Ekadashi. So Tuesday is Ekadashi. Earlier times, everybody used to keep every Ekadashi as Nirjal Ekadashi, but nowadays even that is not practical, not possible. So we try to find out new and new ways of making nice Ekadashi feast. So this is our level of austerities. This is what we can perform for austerities. So Krishna knew all this. Mahaprabhu being so merciful because he got the mood of Srimati Radharani. He is so merciful. He knew. So he said, okay, forget everything else, just chant the holy names. Best austerity, best devotional service, best way to engage our mind and senses in the service of Krishna, and best way to attain Golokera Premadan Harinam Sankirtan, to attain the love of Krishna in the mood of Gopis or Golokvasis, in the mood of Brajvasis, by chanting of the holy names. That's all we have to do. And Prabhupada made it even more simple. He said, okay, chant at least 16 rounds. On Ekadashi, 25, but otherwise at least 16 rounds. If we can chant more, great. We should go for it. That's all we have to do. Just chant. And this reading of Prabhupada's books is very important because it gives us faith. It gives us faith. It gives us knowledge, and also it helps us in preaching to others. But otherwise, chanting is perfect. Chanting in itself, it's topmost, is perfect. There's nothing lacking. But since we don't have full faith, we haven't come to the level of Nishtha, we need some other material. So we study books, so we see all the scriptures talk about chanting, devotion, service to Krishna. We get into the practice, service mode also, we have to serve. Because we are not at the level of like Haridas Thakur where we can chant whole day, every day. So we need some more engagements. So all the practices that Prabhupada created for us, perfect. But among them all, chanting is the topmost. Tem kramanu siddhena dhvasta karma malashaya pranayama saniruddha shad vargash chinnabandhanaha. By thus practicing severe austerities, Maharaj Prithu gradually became steadfast in spiritual life and completely free from all desires for fruitive activities. He also practiced breathing exercises to control his mind and the senses. And by such control, he became completely free from all desires for fruitive activity. The word pranayama is very important in this verse because the Hatha yogis and the Ashtanga yogis practice pranayama, but generally they do not know the purpose behind it. The purpose of pranayama, mystic yoga, is to stop the mind and senses from engaging in fruitive activities. The so-called yogis who practice in Western countries have no idea of this. The aim of pranayama is not to make the body strong and fit for working hard. The aim is worship of Krishna. In the previous verse, it was specifically mentioned that whatever austerity, pranayama and mystic yoga practices Prithu Maharaj performed were performed for the sake of worshipping Krishna. Thus, Prithu Maharaj's service serves as a perfect example for yogis also. Whatever he did to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So he being a pure devotee of the Lord, everything that he did was bhakti, was towards pleasing Krishna, towards serving Krishna. So when he was ruling in that mood, and now he is practicing austerities. That's again for for the purpose of pleasing Krishna. So because one's mind and senses are controlled from going here and there, from getting into fruitive activities, so what a devotee is going to do? Engage that mind in thinking of Krishna, senses in the service of Krishna. So Krishna is pleased. The minds of those who are addicted to fruitive activity are always filled with unclean desires. So fruitive activity, this word will come again and again. So fruitive means when we are seeking the fruits or results of our actions, when we are attached, when we want some fruits or some labh, some phal we need. So that means always filled with unclean desires. Unclean means they're all material desires. Fruitive activities are symptomatic of our polluted desire to dominate material nature. As long as one continues to be subject to polluted desires, he has to accept one material body after another. So-called yogis, without knowledge of the real purpose of yoga, practice it in order to keep the body fit. Thus they engage themselves in fruitive activities, and thus they are bound by desire to accept another body. They are not aware that the ultimate goal of life is to approach Krishna. In order to save such yogis from wandering throughout the different species of life, the Shastras warn that in this age, such yogic practice is simply a waste of time. The only means of elevation is the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Now, there are instances, and devotees sometimes also practice pranayama or other yogasanas. But their point is, by performing these yogasanas and pranayama and other breathing exercises, they can keep the body fit so that they can serve Krishna better. Because if we are sick or we are always going to doctor or always taking medicines, more and more medicines and, allopathic medicines, they make you drowsy or other side effects are there, then that is not good, because how are we going to serve Krishna then? So that way, if somebody is engaged in yoga practices and breathing exercises or any other process, that is okay. Because the purpose is not to enjoy the body. Purpose is to keep the body fit as far as possible and to serve Krishna with the fit and a better body. That's all. King Prithu's activities took place in Satya Yuga, and in this age the practice of yoga is misunderstood by fallen souls who are not capable of practicing anything. Consequently, the Shastras enjoy Kalo Nastev 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 Gataranyata. The conclusion is that unless the karmis, jnanis and yogis come to the point of devotional service to Lord Krishna, their so-called austerities and yoga have no value. Naradhita. If Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is not worshipped, there is no question in practicing meditational yoga, performing karma yoga, or culturing empiric knowledge. As far as pranayama is concerned, chanting of the holy name of the Lord and dancing in ecstasy are also considered pranayama. In a previous verse, Sanat Kumar instructed Maharaj Prithu to engage constantly in the service of the Supreme Lord Vasudeva. Yadpada Pankaja Palash Vilasa Bhaktya Karmashayam Gratitam Udgrathyanti Santa. Only by worshipping Vasudeva can one become free from the desires of fruitive activities. Outside of worshipping Vasudeva, the yogis and jnanis cannot attain freedom from such desires. Here the word pranayam does not refer to any ulterior motive. The actual aim is to strengthen the mind and senses in order to engage them in devotional service. In the present age, this determination can be very easily acquired simply by chanting the holy names, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So, holy names contain everything actually. Everything that we need, that we desire. Sanat Kumaro Bhagwan Yada Hadhyatmikam Param Yogam Tena Purusham Abhajat Purusha Rishabha. Thus the best amongst human beings, Maharaj Prithu, followed that path of spiritual advancement which was advised by Sanat Kumar. That is to say, he worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. In this verse, it is clearly said that Maharaj Prithu, practicing the pranayama yoga system, engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as advised by the saint Sanat Kumar. In this verse, the words Purusham, Abhajat, Purusha Rishabha are significant. Purusha Rishabha refers to Maharaj Prithu, the best amongst human beings, and Purusham refers to Supreme Personality of Godhead. The conclusion is that the best man amongst all men engages in the service of the Supreme Person. So bhakti is not for persons who cannot do anything else. That's why they do bhakti. No, bhakti is for the best amongst men. And what do? They serve the Supreme Person, Supreme Man. One Purusha is worshipable and the other Purusha is worshipper. When the Purusha who worships the living entity thinks of becoming one with the Supreme Person, he simply becomes bewildered and falls into the darkness of ignorance. As stated by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, all living entities assembled in the battlefield as well as Krishna himself were also present in the past as individuals and would continue to be present in the future as individuals also. Therefore, the two Purushas, the living entity and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, never lose their respective identities. Actually, one who is self-realized engages himself in the service of the Lord perpetually, both in this life and in the next. Indeed, for devotees, there is no difference between this life and the next. Why? In this life, a neophyte devotee is trained to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in the next life, he approaches that Supreme Person in Vaikuntha and renders the same devotional service. So, there is no difference. Only thing that changes is this covering or the body. Even for the neophyte devotee, devotional service is considered Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. Devotional service to the Lord is never considered a material activity. Since he is acting on the Brahmbhuta platform, a devotee is already liberated. He therefore has no need to practice any other type of yoga in order to approach the Brahmbhuta stage. If the devotee adheres strictly to the orders of the spiritual master, follows the rules and regulations and chants the Hare Krishna mantra, it should be concluded that he is already at the Brahmbhuta stage. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, one who is engaged in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. So the devotional service and purpose, even for the neophyte devotee who has just joined, just starting doing devotional service, Prabhupada says devotional service is considered Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpata. Means it's at the level of transcendence. Devotional service is never a material activity. And any devotional service, any amount of devotional service we perform, it's kept as a eternal bank balance, a spiritual bank balance. So more and more and more and more we perform devotional service, more we perform with more sincerity, more determination, more purity, more and more our bank balance is growing. And all we have to do is continue with this service and we'll get purified. We'll get spiritualized. we get eligible to go back to the spiritual world. Bhagavad Dharmina sadho shraddhya yatataha sada bhaktir bhagavati brahmani ananya vishaya bhavat. Maharaj Prithu thus engaged completely in devotional service, executing the rules and regulations strictly according to principles, 24 hours daily. Thus his love and devotion unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, developed and became unflinching and fixed. So much of bhakti is being glorified here. The word Bhagavad Dharmina indicates that the religious process practiced by Maharaj Prithu was beyond all pretensions. As stated in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, Dharma Projito Kyatavatra, religious principles which are simply pretentious are actually nothing but cheating. Bhagavad Dharmina is described by Veera Raghavacharya as Nivrita Dharmena, which indicates that it cannot be contaminated by material aspiration. As described by Srila Rupa Goswami, when one who is not inspired by material desires and is not contaminated by the process of fruitive activity and empiric speculation, fully engages in the favorable service of the Lord, his service is called Bhagavad Dharma, or pure devotional service. So no covering of karma and jnana, fruitive activity or empiric speculation. In this verse, the word Brahmani does not refer to the impersonal Brahman. Impersonal Brahman is a subordinate feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And since impersonal Brahman worshippers desire to merge into Brahman effulgence, they cannot be considered followers of Bhagavad Dharma. After being baffled in his material enjoyment, the impersonalist may desire to merge into the existence of the Lord. But a pure devotee of the Lord has no such desire. Therefore, a pure devotee is really Bhagavad Dharmi. So this is the Bhagavad Dharma that is mentioned in this verse. Pure devotional service. And that is what Prithu Maharaj was engaged in. It is clear from this verse that Maharaj Prithu was never a worshipper of the impersonal Brahman, but was at all times a pure devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A devotee's knowledge of the impersonal Brahman is automatically revealed, and he is not interested in merging into impersonal Brahman. Maharaj Prithu's activities in devotional service enabled him to become fixed and steady in discharge of devotional activities, without having to take recourse to karma, jnana, or yoga. So his sitting down and meditating on the Lord, doing pranayama and other activities, was only to please the Lord, only to meditate on the form of the Lord and pastimes of the Lord. So that's why it's considered pure devotional service. Okay, so we'll stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, today there is one more thing revealed from this verses, that why this pranayama, what is it meant for? It's not actually meant for a fit body, but actually to become fit in Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, to be able to control the mind and the senses.
Yeah. Slowly, gradually, a lot of things are revealing in these verses. Thank you so much.
That is true. That is true. Thanks to Prabhupada.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I guess we can stop. You all have a wonderful and safe Ekadashi. Enjoy Ekadashi. Hari Bol.